The rain soaked through my suit as I watched security guards toss 30 years of memories onto our mansion's driveway, my wife Evelyn's accusations still ringing in my ears, while her sister Vanessa watched with barely concealed satisfaction from the doorway. After 15 years of marriage and a lifetime building my reputation in logistics management, I never imagined being treated like a criminal in my own home, branded a thief and adulterer, without evidence or chance to defend myself. Family betrayal cuts deepest when it's orchestrated by those you've welcomed and trusted, their manipulation hidden behind concerned expressions and whispered lies. Standing there in the storm, watching neighbors record my humiliation on their phones, I made a silent promise to myself. Dignity isn't what others grant you. It's what you refuse to surrender. When those closest twist truth to serve their greed, do we crumble beneath betrayal's weight or rise to reclaim what's rightfully ours? If you've ever felt your contributions dismissed by family, you'll understand what James faced next. I lined up my socks in the drawer with military precision, a habit from my logistics officer days that 30 years of civilian life hadn't erased. The sparse Tacoma apartment was a far cry from the waterfront mansion I'd called home until 3 weeks ago, but organization had always been my anchor in chaos. My certificate of excellence in logistics management, the one professional award I'd managed to grab during my hasty exit, now hung centered on the otherwise bare wall. The wedding photo lay face down in the drawer. I couldn't bring myself to display it, nor to discard 15 years of marriage like yesterday's newspaper. The phone rang, interrupting my methodical unpacking. "James Carter," I answered, my professional tone automatic. "James, it's Philip from Trans-Pacific. Just checking in." The industry's buzzing with rumors. I arranged 3 pens perfectly parallel on the desk before responding. "I appreciate the call, Philip. I'm not at liberty to discuss personal matters, but I assure you my professional standards remain unchanged. Of course, if you need anything." After hanging up, I stared at the Logistics Award, running my finger across the inscription, "For finding truth in patterns others miss." A lifetime skill that had failed me when it mattered most. Or had it? I opened my laptop, one of the few possessions I'd managed to secure before security escorted me out. Perhaps it was time to apply those pattern recognition skills to my own life. Chicago, 2009. The corner office view of Lake Michigan sparkled through floor-to-ceiling windows as Walter Kensington, CEO of Midwest Logistics Solutions, extended his hand. "Operations Director for our entire Western Division, James." Corner office, substantial salary increase, and the chance to build something spectacular. His handshake was firm, confident. "We need your answer by Friday." My phone vibrated. "Evelyn." I excused myself to take the call. "James, you won't believe it." Her voice trembled with excitement. "Stone Properties wants me to head their Seattle expansion. Executive track from day one." I watched a sailboat cut through the blue waters of Lake Michigan, feeling the simultaneous tug of 2 futures. "That's wonderful, Eve. There's just one thing." Her hesitation was brief. "It would mean relocating to Seattle immediately." My gaze shifted to the contract on Walter's desk, the operations director title embossed in bold letters. "Tell me more about the Seattle opportunity," I said, already calculating what this sacrifice might mean for us both. Later, champagne in hand, Walter pulled me aside at the celebration gathering. "You're declining our offer for her position in Seattle?" His expression held genuine concern. "Make sure this sacrifice goes both ways, Carter. Partnership means equal giving." I smiled confidently. Eve and I are a team. Her success is mine too. To new beginnings. Walter raised his glass, his eyes unconvinced. The image dissolved into our Seattle housewarming 6 months later. Evelyn radiant as she guided guests through our newly purchased Queen Anne neighborhood home, while I arranged catering with characteristically unnoticed efficiency. You made the right choice, I whispered to myself, watching her shine. This is just the beginning of our journey. To Stone Elite Properties' most successful year to date. Glasses clinked around our dining table in 2018. Evelyn glowing at the head, now CEO, after an impressive ascent. And to family reunions, she added, her voice catching as she reached for her sister's hand. Having Vanessa back in my life after 20 years is the greatest gift. I studied Vanessa Stone as she smiled appreciatively at the toast. Something about her had triggered my logistician's instinct for irregularities since her sudden appearance 6 months earlier. A long-lost sister separated through foster care, she'd explained, finding Evelyn through a DNA ancestry service. Your home is absolutely magnificent, Vanessa commented, eyes scanning the waterfront mansion that had replaced our starter home. The art collection alone must be worth more than most people earn in a lifetime. James manages our finances, Evelyn said proudly. He has quite the eye for appreciating assets. Vanessa's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. How fascinating. Do you handle all the household accounts, James? Most of them, I answered carefully. Evelyn focuses on growing the business. So dedicated, Vanessa murmured, but her gaze had already moved to the family photographs on the sideboard. She lingered on birth dates, names, childhood locations, her phone discreetly in hand. Later, I found myself wondering why someone supposedly reconnecting with family would need to document such basic information about her own sister's life. Late 2023. The home office had become my sanctuary, dual monitors displaying household accounts and investment portfolios I'd managed with characteristic precision throughout our marriage. Frowning, I toggled between screens. That can't be right, I muttered, rechecking figures against previous month statements. More coffee? Vanessa appeared at the doorway, startling me. Her visits had evolved from occasional to near daily, her presence in our home as consistent as furniture. Thank you, I said, accepting the cup while discreetly minimizing the screen showing unusual transfers from our joint account. Still reconciling accounts? Her tone carried subtle derision. Evelyn mentioned you spend hours on these spreadsheets. Just being thorough. Later that evening, I showed Evelyn the discrepancies. These withdrawals don't match any of our regular expenses. Nearly $12,000 last month alone. She barely glanced at the screen, distracted by quarterly reports. I needed funds for a potential investment opportunity. I mentioned it. I don't recall. James, she sighed. Not everything requires discussion. You're becoming obsessive about these accounts. The word stung. It's not obsessive to track unexplained expenses. You're overthinking things as usual, Vanessa chimed in from the doorway. I hadn't realized she was listening. Evelyn works incredibly hard. She doesn't need to justify every business decision. Evelyn nodded appreciatively at her sister. Exactly. Now can we please talk about something else? Later that night, checking my work email, I noticed an anonymous complaint had been filed questioning my expense reporting. The phrasing caught my attention. Discrepancies between you and I. The same grammatical error appeared in Vanessa's handwritten birthday note to Evelyn, just between you and I. A coincidence, perhaps. But logistics had taught me that coincidences, like statistical anomalies, often reveal patterns when properly examined. My Tacoma apartment walls had transformed into an investigation center. A large calendar displayed color-coded events. Blue for password changes to accounts I'd previously accessed. Red for canceled joint appearances. Yellow for Evelyn's emergency business trips that coincided with major family or social events. I stepped back, studying the emerging pattern. The shift began gradually after Vanessa's arrival, but accelerated dramatically in the past 3 months. Every changed password, every canceled dinner, every cold interaction had a common thread. My phone buzzed with a voicemail from Evelyn's assistant. "Mr. Carter, as requested, your office access has been deactivated and personal items boxed." I hadn't made any such request. Maria, our longtime housekeeper, had called earlier. "Mr. James, I shouldn't say this, but Miss Vanessa has been asking strange questions about your schedule, your friends, where you keep important papers." The timeline revealed a critical acceleration point: Vanessa's discovery of suspicious emails on our shared home computer, emails I had never written, discussing affairs and financial improprieties I had never committed. I marked the date with a heavy red circle. The manufactured evidence had appeared exactly 2 days after I'd questioned the unusual account transfers. Checking my watch, I straightened my tie. The Northwest Business Leadership Gala started in an hour, my first public appearance since the expulsion. If I wanted answers, I needed to understand how far the character assassination had spread. Crystal chandeliers illuminated the hotel ballroom where Seattle's business elite gathered for the annual fundraiser. For 15 years, Evelyn and I had attended together, her on my arm, or, more recently, me on hers. Tonight, I entered alone. Conversation stuttered as I approached. Former colleagues offered awkward half-smiles before finding urgent reasons to refresh their drinks. A table where I'd been welcomed for years suddenly had no empty seats. I positioned myself near the service entrance, where staff conversations carried more truth than the polished veneer of the main floor. "That's him, the one whose wife caught him stealing from the company," whispered a young server to another. "I heard he was sleeping with competitors too," came the reply. Richard Blackwell, head of the Chamber of Commerce and a 20-year acquaintance, approached with practiced concern. "James, unexpected to see you here. How are you? Managing?" "I'm well, Richard. Surprising how quickly 15 years of marriage can be erased by unfounded accusations." Discomfort flickered across his face. These situations are always complicated. Indeed, especially when they involve forged evidence. Richard's eyes darted away. "I should greet the mayor. Excuse me." As he retreated, I noticed the waitstaff watching our interaction. One older server nodded slightly in my direction, a small gesture of support in a room that had decided my guilt without evidence. Across the room, a familiar face caught my eye. Jennifer Hayes, my former administrative assistant at Stone Elite, slipped a business card into my hand as she passed. On the back, "We should talk. Cafe Analog, 10 a.m. tomorrow." Cafe Analog sat 6 blocks from Stone Elite headquarters, far enough to avoid casual encounters with current employees. Jennifer chose the corner table, her back to the wall, eyes nervously checking the door each time it opened. "I shouldn't be here," she began, voice barely above a whisper. "But what they're doing isn't right." "What exactly are they doing, Jennifer?" She slid a sealed envelope across the table. It started small. "Vanessa asking questions about your schedule, your contacts." Jennifer twisted her coffee cup. Then she began suggesting things, how you were acting suspicious, staying late to access financial records, taking private calls. I kept my face neutral, despite the simmering anger. "When did this start?" 3 months ago. It intensified. She'd ask about old projects you managed, especially international shipping contracts from 2015-2018. Said Evelyn was concerned about irregularities. The timeline matched perfectly with my calendar markings. The final straw was when she asked me to find emails proving you were meeting competitors. Jennifer's voice hardened. I refused. 2 days later, those exact emails mysteriously appeared in the system, and I was transferred to accounting. These accusations are false, I said quietly. I know. Jennifer met my eyes directly. You're many things, Mr. Carter, but you're not a cheat or a thief. Your methods were always meticulous, ethical. Is there anything else I should know? Jennifer glanced at her watch. She's been asking about archived financial records, specifically projects you managed years ago, something about foreign investors and property acquisitions. I thanked her, arranging a secure email for further communication. As she left, my phone notification reminded me of my standing racquetball game with the one person who might help me understand what I was truly facing. The rhythmic thwack of the racquetball echoed through the private court as Marcus Williams, an FBI financial crimes specialist and my racquetball partner of 5 years, returned a challenging shot. Hypothetically, I said between rallies, carefully avoiding security cameras, if someone wanted to frame an executive for financial improprieties, what evidence would be most damaging? Marcus's eyebrow raised slightly, but he maintained our game. Hypothetically, forged emails suggesting collusion with competitors, financial records showing irregular transfers to personal accounts, both nearly impossible to disprove quickly. We moved to a camera blind spot during a water break, and if this hypothetical person suspected identity fraud and significant financial crimes by the accuser? Marcus kept his voice casual. They would need documented evidence, authenticated paper trails, verified connections between supposedly unrelated accounts. Hypothetically speaking, of course. Of course. Marcus studied me. Interesting timing for hypotheticals. We've had recent interest in certain real estate transactions involving foreign investors connected to Stone Elite properties. I controlled my expression. Completely coincidental, I'm sure. Completely. Marcus toweled off. In theory, if someone had legitimate concerns about such matters, documentation would be essential. Electronic evidence can be manipulated. I nodded, understanding the guidance. Good game today. Same time next week? He asked as we left. Count on it. Returning to my apartment, I found an official-looking envelope wedged in the door. Inside, court documents freezing all my accounts and a restraining order prohibiting contact with Evelyn or approach within 500 feet of our home or Stone Elite offices. The allegations cited threatening behavior on dates I could prove I was elsewhere. My phone buzzed with notifications. Account access denied across all financial platforms. The systematic isolation was now complete, but they had made a critical error. The sloppy fabrication of dates would be their first vulnerability. The legal documents spread across my kitchen table told a devastating story. Joint accounts frozen, medical insurance canceled, credit cards deactivated. The restraining order featured Evelyn's signature, the real one, not the hesitant scrawl she used when uncertain. She believed these accusations, truly believed them. Mr. Carter, I'm sorry, but the freeze was implemented at Mrs. Carter's specific request, the bank manager explained over the phone. We require a court order to reverse it. The court clerk was equally unhelpful. The judge has reviewed the evidence and found merit in the protective order. You may contest it at the hearing in 30 days. My medication notification pinged. Time for the blood pressure medicine I no longer had insurance to cover. The restraining order detailed threatening behavior on 3 specific dates: February 12th, March 3rd, and April 18th. I pulled up my calendar, confirming what I already knew. February 12th. I was in Portland at a logistics conference with 50 witnesses. March 3rd. I was having dinner with Marcus. April 18th. I was at a doctor's appointment. Alibis wouldn't matter if I couldn't present them. But the sloppiness of the fabrication gave me hope. Whoever created these allegations hadn't bothered with basic fact-checking. I straightened my tie. Decision made. The Children's Hospital benefit was tonight, an event I'd supported for a decade. Restraining order or not, I wouldn't be erased from the community without a fight. The Fairmont Olympic Hotel gleamed with elegance as black-tied attendees streamed through its grand entrance. For 10 years, I'd helped organize this benefit, personally securing major donors through my business network. Tonight, I approached as an outsider. Security spotted me immediately, 2 men in suits consulting tablets as I reached the entrance. "Mr. Carter," the taller one addressed me with rehearsed professionalism, "I'm afraid we can't permit your entry this evening." "There must be a mistake. I'm on the organizing committee." "Sir, we have a restraining order on file prohibiting your attendance at events where Mrs. Carter is present." He turned his tablet, displaying the court document. "These allegations are false." I kept my voice steady, despite the humiliation burning through me. "If you'd simply call William Hargrove on the board." "Please don't make this difficult, Mr. Carter." I became acutely aware of the crowd gathering behind me, phones discreetly raised, documenting my public rejection. William Hargrove himself emerged from the ballroom, saw me, and deliberately turned away, a man I'd known for 15 years. Dignity, I reminded myself. They can take your home, your reputation, your community standing, but only you can surrender your dignity. "I understand," I said quietly. "Good evening, gentlemen." The walk back to my car stretched eternally, whispers following me like shadows. In the rearview mirror, I barely recognized my own reflection. The confident logistics executive replaced by a man fighting for his very identity. The drive home through intensifying rain triggered memories of another stormy night, the one that had started this nightmare. 3 weeks earlier. Rain lashed against the mansion windows as I greeted neighbors at our impromptu gathering, a tradition whenever storms knocked out power in adjacent neighborhoods. Evelyn had been in Vancouver on business, not expected back until morning. Her sudden appearance in the doorway, still in traveling clothes, sent a ripple of surprise through the room. "James." Her voice carried an unfamiliar edge that silenced conversations. "We need to talk, now." In the study, Vanessa waited, eyes red-rimmed with theatrical tears, holding printed emails. "Explain these," Evelyn demanded, throwing the papers onto the desk. Emails discussing clandestine meetings with Bernard Williston, Evelyn's chief competitor. Emails outlining company secrets shared for financial gain. Emails bearing my signature, but words I'd never written. "These are forgeries," I said, scanning the documents. "I've never written these, never met Williston." "Your assistant confirmed the meetings," Vanessa interjected, voice trembling with manufactured concern. "I didn't want to believe it either, Evelyn." "There's more," Evelyn continued coldly. "Financial transfers, company information leaked to competitors. And these..." She threw down another stack of papers, hotel receipts, restaurant charges, locations and dates when I'd been elsewhere. "None of this is true," I insisted, mind racing to comprehend the elaborate setup. "Eve, we've been married 15 years. You know me. I thought I did. Her voice hardened as Vanessa whispered something in her ear. Get him out of my house immediately. Security appeared, men I'd hired, now escorting me through my own home as neighbors watched in shock. The last image before the door closed. Vanessa's arm around Evelyn, satisfaction poorly disguised as comfort. Judge Reynolds, my landlord, studied me over reading glasses as I explained my situation. His modest office held framed credentials and family photos, organized with the precision I respected. So your accounts are frozen, your reputation damaged, and you're facing fabricated legal accusations, he summarized, removing his glasses. All orchestrated by this sister-in-law. That's my belief, yes, he nodded slowly. Reminds me of a case from my bench days. Wealthy businessman, second wife, manipulated him against his children from his first marriage. By the time the truth emerged, relationships were irreparably damaged and millions lost. How was the truth uncovered? I asked. Documentation, he replied firmly. Irrefutable evidence that couldn't be dismissed as hearsay or emotion. Financial records, communication patterns, verified timelines. Rain continued outside, but for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. I have a friend, Judge Reynolds continued, Eleanor Williams, forensic accountant, specializes in family financial disputes. Uncovered a similar scheme in the Westbrook inheritance case last year. I'd appreciate the introduction. One more thing, Mr. Carter. His expression grew serious. In my experience, those who manipulate others are often expert at destroying evidence. Whatever you gather must be secured beyond their reach. Judge Reynolds made the call, arranging for Eleanor to meet us immediately. As we waited, he shared more of his own family's financial betrayal, how his son-in-law had systematically drained his daughter's inheritance before evidence finally exposed the scheme. The hardest part wasn't the money, he concluded. It was watching my daughter struggle to accept that someone she loved had so thoroughly deceived her. His words echoed my own experience. The financial damage paled compared to the shattered trust. Eleanor Williams spread documents across my kitchen table, specialized light equipment illuminating the signatures in question. Her efficiency reminded me of my own methodical approach to logistics problems. Forgery often reveals itself in hesitation marks, she explained, magnifying sections of the signatures on alleged emails. The forger slows down during complex parts of the signature, creating microscopic ink pools invisible to the naked eye. I examined the comparison between known examples of my signature and the ones on the damning documents. These aren't even close, I observed. To an untrained eye, they'd pass. But see this distinctive loop on the J? Your authentic signature maintains fluid motion through this section. The forgeries show clear hesitation. She shifted to another document. More concerning is this pattern of irregularities across multiple documents. Whoever did this wasn't making random errors. They were systematically creating a paper trail designed to implicate you. Can you prove their forgeries? Absolutely. And more importantly, she pulled out Vanessa's notepad I'd provided from Jennifer. I can match distinctive handwriting characteristics between these forgeries and your sister-in-law's writing samples. For the first time since my expulsion, solid evidence confirmed my suspicions. Not paranoia, not misunderstanding, but deliberate, calculated fraud. This flourish on the Y ending is particularly distinctive, Eleanor continued. It appears in both the forged signatures and Mr. Stone's handwriting samples. Statistically, this correlation is beyond coincidental. I moved to the whiteboard, marker in hand, as a strategic plan began forming. The logistics of truth, would require the same methodical approach I'd applied throughout my career, identifying sources, tracking movements, establishing connections, and building an irrefutable case. "We'll need more than signatures," I said, mapping initial investigation paths. "We need money trails, communication records, and motive. In logistics, we call this network mapping," I explained to Eleanor a week later, gesturing to the apartment walls now covered with diagrams and connecting strings. "Every piece of information flows through channels, just like products through supply chains. Red strings connected financial transactions, blue tracked communication patterns, and green followed the movement of supposedly confidential company information. At the center, Vanessa Stone, the hub through which all deception flowed. The classic supply chain vulnerability is single-point dependency," I recorded in my voice notes. Vanessa systematically positioned herself as Evelyn's sole trusted information source by discrediting everyone else. My shipping contact had confirmed via encrypted message. Vanessa had met with Bernard Williston, Evelyn's chief competitor, on 3 separate occasions. Not in offices, but on his yacht, meetings deliberately kept off official calendars. She isolated Evelyn from multiple information sources. I continued mapping. First me, then her executive team, gradually replacing verified information with her own narrative. The phone rang. Eleanor with document authentication progress. "The forensic analysis confirms it, James. 97% certainty that Vanessa Stone forged those financial records. The pressure patterns and ink composition are consistent across all samples." I added this confirmation to the map, another connection solidifying the pattern of deliberate fraud. The methodology was becoming clear. Vanessa hadn't just opportunistically taken advantage of Evelyn's trust. She had executed a meticulously planned operation. While reviewing financial records for additional evidence, a notification caught my attention. An old investment account I'd opened before marriage and forgotten during our financial consolidation. If it remained active, it might provide crucial independence for the investigation ahead. "Mr. Carter, this account has been dormant for 15 years, the bank manager explained, reviewing the archival folder. "But it remains active with all accumulated interest." The private consultation room at First Northwest Bank provided welcome confidentiality as I examined the statements. What had begun as a modest investment had grown significantly through automatic reinvestment. "Can you confirm this account's privacy protections?" I asked. "It's separate from any joint accounts with my wife." "Completely separate," she confirmed. "This predates your marriage and has no associated authorized users." The account balance wasn't enormous, but sufficient to fund the investigation and sustain me during the legal battle ahead. Financial independence, the first step toward reclaiming agency. "One concerning note, Mr. Carter," the manager added, checking her records. "There was an attempted access to this account 2 weeks ago. It failed authentication, but someone was definitely trying to locate your assets." Another piece of the puzzle. Vanessa hadn't just been destroying my reputation. She'd been hunting for any resources I might use to defend myself. "I'd like to update the security protocols on this account," I said, "and establish a new checking account with no connection to my previous financial institutions." As I left the bank, my secure phone buzzed with an encrypted message from Rodrigo, my international shipping contact. "Found something. Need to meet. Old Pier Restaurant, 2 p.m. The hidden account had been my first small victory. Perhaps Rodrigo had discovered another. The dockside restaurant offered both privacy and enough public exposure to discourage anything untoward. Rodrigo Mendez, my former shipping coordinator, now working with international maritime partners, chose a corner table with clear sight lines to all entrances. "This is dangerous, Mr. Carter," he said after we ordered, eyes constantly scanning the room. "But I owe you for the Singapore intervention." He slid a folder across the table. Inside, photographs of Vanessa meeting Bernard Williston aboard his yacht, documents clearly visible on the table between them. "These meetings began 6 months ago," Rodrigo explained quietly. "At first, industry gossip suggested a romantic connection. Then my contacts at Pacific Shipping noticed information leaks, routes, client lists, contract details, all belonging to Stone Elite." I examined the photographs carefully. The documents visible showed unmistakable Stone Elite letterhead. "The timeline matches exactly," I confirmed. "Each major information leak preceded a significant market advantage for Williston's company." "There's more," Rodrigo continued, lowering his voice further. "The last meeting included discussion of property acquisitions, specifically properties managed by Stone Elite for foreign investors. This expanded the scope beyond personal betrayal or corporate espionage to potentially international financial crimes." "Can you get me copies of the shipping manifests for these properties?" I asked. "Already done." Rodrigo tapped the folder. "But be careful, Mr. Carter. These transactions involve people who don't appreciate scrutiny." I thanked him, securing the evidence before checking my phone. An urgent message from Eleanor. "Discovery in Vanessa's financial records. Meet at Reynolds's immediately." The case was building faster than anticipated. As I left the restaurant, I couldn't help but notice a black sedan with tinted windows parked across the street, a reminder that I wasn't the only one tracking these connections. Judge Reynolds's private study had become our secure command center. Eleanor Williams spread financial documents across the large oak table, while Michael Chen, the IT specialist from Stone Elite, who had grown suspicious of system access patterns, established secure communications. Marcus joined us, careful to establish he was present as a friend, not in any official capacity. "We've uncovered a multi-layered scheme," I began, updating the team on Rodrigo's information. "Corporate espionage connecting Vanessa to Williston is now documented." Eleanor jumped in, professional and precise. "The financial trail is even more concerning. I've identified a pattern of transfers, money moving from Stone Elite management accounts through shell companies, eventually reaching offshore accounts controlled by Vanessa under a different name." "The digital evidence supports this," Michael added, showing access logs. "Vanessa's credentials were used to access secure servers containing proprietary client information. The access occurred after hours, focused specifically on foreign investor accounts." Marcus listened carefully before speaking. "Hypothetically, this pattern suggests more than simple corporate espionage. The involvement of foreign investment properties raises concerns about potential money laundering." I organized the evidence into categories: personal fraud against me, corporate espionage against Stone Elite, and potential international financial crimes. Each required different documentation standards and approached the case from different angles. "Our strategy must be comprehensive," I explained. "We need redundant evidence streams so that if one approach is blocked, others remain viable." As we coordinated roles and secure communication protocols, Marcus received an alert on his phone. His expression tightened as he read the message. "Large transfers initiated from Stone Elite accounts to several international destinations," he reported. "The movement has triggered automated monitoring systems. The timing created new urgency. Vanessa was accelerating her endgame, perhaps sensing the investigation. We needed to move faster than anticipated." "Michael, can you get us authorized access to Stone Elite headquarters?" I asked. I can override security for the executive floor, he confirmed, but we'll need a legally defensible reason to be there. Leave that to me, Eleanor said. I'll prepare the necessary documentation for evidence collection. The alliance was set, each member bringing crucial expertise to the investigation. Now we needed the final piece of evidence, proof of who Vanessa Stone really was. Court-approved evidence collection for pending divorce proceedings, Eleanor explained to the legal observer as we entered Vanessa's apartment. Limited to financial documents and communication records relevant to the Stone-Carter separation. The observer nodded, following protocol as we methodically searched the designated areas. While Eleanor examined the home office, I focused on the bedroom closet, where Jennifer had mentioned seeing Vanessa hide documents. The false panel at the closet's back was professional grade, nearly invisible unless you knew what to look for. Inside, a communication device not connected to standard networks, passport documents with multiple identities, and a file labeled DNA Results. "Document this," I told the observer, carefully extracting the contents according to proper evidence protocols. The DNA results told a stunning story. Tests comparing Vanessa's DNA with Evelyn's, clearly showing no familial relationship. Beside it, research notes on Evelyn's childhood, foster care records, and detailed information about her real sister who had died in a car accident 15 years earlier. Vanessa Stone wasn't Evelyn's long-lost sister. She was a complete imposter who had researched and assumed the identity of Evelyn's deceased sister. The ultimate emotional manipulation, leveraging Evelyn's deepest vulnerability, her childhood abandonment and separation from family. "Mr. Carter," Eleanor called from the office, "you need to see this." She had discovered financial records showing similar schemes in 3 other states. Wealthy individuals targeted, trust gained through manufactured connections, assets systematically drained. As I secured digital copies of everything, my phone alerted me to unusual financial activity at Stone Elite. Massive transfers being prepared for following day. Vanessa was making her final moves. We had the evidence. Now we needed to move quickly before she disappeared with millions. Each evidence category requires different documentation standards, I explained to the team gathered in Judge Reynolds' study. Personal fraud against me needs chain of custody for divorce proceedings. Corporate espionage requires business records authentication. International financial crimes demand the highest standard of verification. The evidence arsenal had grown impressive. Forged signatures with forensic verification, financial transfer records showing money movement, communication records between Vanessa and Williston, server access logs documenting information theft, and the bombshell DNA results proving Vanessa's complete identity fraud. For maximum impact, we present in specific sequence, I continued, organizing the presentation flow. Begin with forged documents that damaged my reputation, transition to corporate espionage evidence, culminate with identity fraud revelation. Eleanor confirmed the authentication process was complete. The signature analysis is conclusive. 99% certainty that Vanessa forged documents in your name. Admissible in any court proceeding. We established contingency plans for various scenarios: Vanessa's denial, attempts to destroy evidence, efforts to flee, or attempts to implicate Evelyn. Remember, Judge Reynolds cautioned, someone capable of this level of deception won't surrender easily. Expect emotional manipulation, counter-accusations, and attempts to redirect blame. I nodded, having anticipated these reactions in my logistics-based approach. Which is why we've created redundant evidence backup systems and witness protocols. No single point of failure. The final preparations were meticulous, each team member understanding their role in the confrontation to come. We weren't seeking revenge, but truth and appropriate consequences. As we finalized preparations, Michael received an alert on his security monitoring system. Vanessa is booking international travel, one-way ticket to the Cayman Islands, departing tomorrow morning. Our timeline had just accelerated dramatically. Multiple accounts showing transfer preparations, Michael reported, monitoring financial movements on his secure laptop, shifting funds through various shell companies before final offshore transfer. The digital tracking station we'd established showed Vanessa's increasing desperation, liquidating assets, converting funds to less traceable instruments, booking travel under an alternate identity. She's accelerating the timeline, I observed. The question is why? What triggered her sudden exit strategy? Marcus checked his secure phone. My contacts report increased regulatory attention on foreign real estate investments, particularly those managed by Stone Elite. Standard compliance review, but it might have spooked her. We need to execute immediately, I decided, checking the secure timeline we'd established. Michael, coordinate access protocols for Stone Elite headquarters. Eleanor, prepare the legal documentation for evidence presentation. Judge Reynolds, can you arrange for a court recorder to be present? The team mobilized with efficiency born of professional expertise, each member focused on their specific responsibilities. Transfer notifications accelerating, Michael reported, eyes fixed on the screen. She's moving everything to final holding accounts before offshore transfer. If we don't intercept within 12 hours, the money will be unrecoverable. I contacted Rodrigo to verify Vanessa's travel arrangements. First-class ticket to Grand Cayman, departing 8:45 a.m., reserved under one of her alternate identities. Marcus, what's the status on account monitoring? I asked. Financial crime alerts have been flagged in the system. No official action yet, but automated monitoring is active on all connected accounts. He chose his words carefully, maintaining his unofficial capacity. We synchronized watches and communication devices, establishing backup plans for every contingency. The confrontation would occur at Stone Elite headquarters at 9:00 a.m., catching Vanessa before her flight, while ensuring Evelyn and the executive team would be present for the quarterly planning meeting. One final check, I said, reviewing our evidence package. Are we missing anything? Eleanor shook her head. The documentation is comprehensive and unassailable. Chain of custody maintained for all evidence. For a moment, standing amid the focused activity, I felt a wave of sadness. This methodical dismantling of deception would also destroy whatever remained of my marriage. Necessary, but not without cost. Let's proceed, I said, pushing the emotion aside. Before confronting Vanessa, we needed to understand if Evelyn had begun to develop doubts of her own. Through Michael's secure access to Stone Elite's executive floor security feed, we observed Evelyn alone in her office. The confident CEO appeared uncharacteristically troubled, reviewing financial reports with increasing concern. Quarterly returns down 12%, she muttered, comparing documents. Third consecutive decline, despite expanded client base. When Vanessa entered, Evelyn's demeanor shifted, straightening papers, hiding her concern behind a practiced executive mask. Working late again? Vanessa asked, setting down a cup of tea with casual familiarity. These numbers don't make sense, Evelyn replied, gesturing to the reports. We've increased property acquisitions by 20%, but revenue is declining across all divisions. Vanessa's smile remained fixed. Market fluctuations, darling. Nothing to worry about. Bernard Williston's operation is reporting similar challenges. How would you know Williston's financial position? Evelyn asked sharply. A momentary flash of alarm crossed Vanessa's face before she recovered. Industry reports, of course. I was researching competitor positioning for your board presentation. Evelyn seemed unconvinced, but let the subject drop. There's another issue. It reported unauthorized access to our secure server, someone using my credentials to access foreign investor files. Probably routine security testing, Vanessa suggested smoothly. Remember authorizing that last month? I don't recall. You signed the approval during the Denver trip. You were quite busy. It's understandable you'd forget. Vanessa's hand briefly touched Evelyn's shoulder. Why don't I handle the board presentation prep while you rest? You've been working too hard since James left. Evelyn flinched at my name, but nodded. As Vanessa exited, Evelyn reopened the financial reports, her expression hardening with renewed suspicion. She's beginning to see the inconsistencies, I observed as Michael ended the feed. But she's not there yet. Will it matter? Eleanor asked. The evidence stands regardless of Evelyn's current perspective. It matters, I said quietly. Not for the case, but for her. Discovering you've been manipulated is painful enough. Discovering you helped destroy an innocent person's life in the process. I left the thought unfinished. We finalized our approach strategy, knowing tomorrow would permanently alter multiple lives. Not with vengeance, but with truth. Judge Reynolds' study had transformed into our command center, a scale model of Stone Elite's executive floor displayed prominently. Security schedules, access points, and executive meeting rooms were clearly marked. Michael will override security protocols at 8:45 a.m., allowing our team entry through the service elevator, I explained, tracing the approach route on the model. Eleanor will present the court documentation authorizing evidence collection for the divorce proceedings, establishing legal standing for our presence. Each team member received a comprehensive evidence package, documentation organized by category, authentication certificates attached, chain of custody verified. We established contingency protocols for various scenarios, from denial to flight attempts. Remember, our goal is truth and appropriate consequences, not humiliation, I emphasized. We present evidence methodically, without emotion or accusation. Marcus reviewed the legal parameters one final time. Evidence presented in this manner is admissible in subsequent proceedings. The presence of the court recorder ensures accurate documentation of all responses. Judge Reynolds, who would remain at the command center managing communications, offered a final caution. People like Vanessa Stone don't surrender easily. When cornered, expect desperate measures, including attempts to implicate others or destroy evidence. I nodded, having anticipated this in our planning, which is why we've created redundant evidence streams and secured backup documentation off-site. As the team reviewed final details, I stepped away briefly, removing 3 items from my wallet: the faded photo of Evelyn and me on our wedding day, my logistics certification card, and my father's watch, reminders of the values that had guided my life before this crisis. These personal totems would ground me during the confrontation ahead, ensuring I maintained focus on truth rather than retribution. We're ready, I announced, returning to the team. Final communications check at 7:00 a.m. In her luxury downtown apartment, Vanessa Stone moved with increasing urgency. Half-packed suitcases lay open on the bed, designer clothing carefully selected for her new life abroad. 3 laptops displayed different financial platforms, each showing confirmation of transfers in progress. Access credentials confirmed, she murmured into her phone. Final transfer scheduled for 7:30 a.m. Arrival at destination by 2:00 p.m. local time. She checked her alternate passport. Carolina Vega, Spanish citizenship, established 5 years earlier through carefully manufactured documentation. The Cayman Islands account awaited final transfers, already holding millions from previous operations. One more night, she reassured herself, rehearsing the explanation she would give Evelyn about her sudden business trip. Family emergency in Madrid. I'll return next week. A story designed to buy crucial days before anyone realized she was gone permanently. Her phone chimed with an alert. Unusual access to archived records in Stone Elite's database. Someone was examining the same files she had manipulated weeks earlier. Vanessa's practiced calm wavered momentarily. The operation had been perfect. Isolate the target, remove opposition, extract assets, disappear. The same pattern she had executed successfully 3 times before, but something felt different this time. James Carter had proven more resilient than anticipated, his methodical approach more threatening than the emotional reactions she typically encountered. It doesn't matter, she told herself firmly, securing travel documents in her carry-on. By this time tomorrow, I'll be unreachable. She made one final call, confirming her private car service for 7:00 a.m., early enough to complete the transfer from the airport business lounge before boarding, late enough to avoid suspicion. The approaching storm, invisible to her, was about to break with unexpected force. Stone Elite Properties' glass tower reflected the morning sun as our team approached at precisely 8:45 a.m. Eleanor led with the legal documentation, Michael managed electronic access, and I carried the evidence portfolio, maintaining professional composure despite the circumstances. The security desk represented the first potential obstacle. I recognized Thomas Grayson, head of security, a man I had hired 3 years earlier. "Mr. Carter," he began formally, consulting his tablet. "I'm afraid—" Eleanor stepped forward, presenting the court order. "This documentation authorizes Mr. Carter's presence for evidence collection relevant to ongoing legal proceedings. A court recorder will join us shortly." Thomas reviewed the documentation, uncertainty evident in his expression. "Protocol requires me to notify Mrs. Stone immediately." "That won't be necessary," Michael interjected, swiping his security badge. "Executive authorization has been granted for this visit." The security system beeped confirmation as he entered his override code. Thomas wavered, caught between protocols and the apparent legitimacy of our documentation. "I'll need to accompany you to the executive floor." "Of course," I agreed, maintaining professional courtesy. "We welcome the proper observation of all proceedings." As we entered the executive elevator, Thomas made a discreet call, likely alerting Evelyn's assistant to our arrival. The confrontation would begin sooner than planned, but our preparation accounted for such variables. "Remember," I reminded the team quietly, "methodical presentation, emotional control, focus on evidence rather than accusation." The elevator doors opened to the executive floor, where Evelyn's assistant Catherine stood blocking the conference room entrance, expression alarmed. "Mrs. Stone is in a quarterly planning meeting and cannot be disturbed," she stated firmly. "Catherine," I acknowledged her with professional courtesy, "what's about to happen is necessary and legally authorized. Please don't place yourself in a compromising position." Before she could respond, Michael executed the security override, conference room doors unlocking with an audible click. "What is the meaning of this?" Catherine demanded as we proceeded forward. "The truth," I replied simply, entering the conference room where Evelyn, Vanessa, and the executive team sat frozen in surprise. The quarterly planning meeting halted mid-sentence as we entered, expressions ranging from shock to outrage around the conference table. Evelyn stood abruptly, composed, but visibly angry. "This is completely inappropriate," she stated coldly. Security, remove them immediately. Mrs. Stone, Eleanor responded, presenting the legal documentation. We're here under court authorization to present evidence relevant to ongoing proceedings. A court recorder is present to document all interactions. Vanessa remained unnaturally still, eyes calculating as she assessed the situation. The executive team shifted uncomfortably, uncertain how to respond to this unprecedented interruption. Whatever you believe you're doing, James, this is not the venue, Evelyn said, struggling to maintain her executive composure. I respectfully disagree, I replied, connecting my evidence portfolio to the conference room's presentation system. What I'm about to present affects everyone in this room, both personally and professionally. The first slides appeared, forensic analysis of the forged signatures on documents that had been used to discredit me. Eleanor provided expert commentary on the authentication process and statistical certainty of forgery. These documents, which form the basis of allegations against me, contain signatures forensically proven to be forgeries, I explained, maintaining professional detachment despite the personal nature of the evidence. Evelyn's expression shifted from anger to confusion as she examined the detailed analysis. This doesn't prove. The next section addresses financial irregularities, I continued, advancing to documentation of unauthorized transfers and account manipulations. These records show systematic movement of funds from Stone Elite accounts through various shell companies, ultimately reaching offshore destinations. The executive team leaned forward, professional concern overriding the awkwardness of the situation. These revelations affected their company directly. This is absurd, Vanessa finally spoke, voice controlled but eyes darting to the exit. Evelyn, he's clearly fabricated this so-called evidence in some misguided attempt at revenge. The documentation authentication certificates are included in your packets, Eleanor addressed the room. All evidence maintains proper chain of custody and forensic verification. Evelyn attempted to call Vanessa's phone, frowning when it went straight to voicemail, the first visible crack in her certainty. There's more, I said quietly, advancing to the evidence of corporate espionage, photographs of Vanessa meeting with Bernard Williston, server access logs showing proprietary information theft, timeline correlating information leaks with competitor advantages. The executive team's murmurs grew louder as the implications became clear. This wasn't merely a personal dispute, but a matter of corporate security and fiduciary responsibility. Evelyn's face had paled, her gaze shifting between the evidence and Vanessa, whose composed facade was beginning to fracture. I'd like to speak with my sister privately before this continues, Evelyn requested, voice unsteady. I'm afraid that's not possible at this point, I replied gently, preparing to reveal the final evidence, because Vanessa Stone is not your sister. The conference room fell silent as I displayed the DNA test results and identity documentation. These DNA analyses conclusively prove that Vanessa Stone has no biological relationship to Evelyn, I explained, maintaining professional tone despite the personal devastation this revelation represented. Further documentation reveals a pattern of similar identity fraud in 3 other states, targeting wealthy individuals through manufactured personal connections. Vanessa's composure cracked completely, her practiced charm replaced by calculating desperation. This is ridiculous. Evelyn, you can't possibly believe these obvious forgeries. The DNA testing was conducted by 3 independent laboratories, Eleanor interjected. The statistical certainty exceeds 99.9% that no biological relationship exists. Evelyn stared at Vanessa, decades of executive training failing to mask her growing horror. Is this true? Of course not. Vanessa attempted to recover, reaching for Evelyn's hand, which was sharply withdrawn. "This is James manipulating evidence, just as he manipulated company funds. Remember the transfers we discovered? The meetings with Williston?" I advanced to the final slides. Documentation of Vanessa's research into Evelyn's real sister, who had died years earlier, the constructed backstory, the careful gathering of personal details that had made her deception so convincing. "Your real sister, Sarah, died in a car accident 15 years ago," I said gently to Evelyn. "Vanessa researched your family history, created a false identity, and used your understandable desire for family connection to establish herself in your life." The executive team watched in stunned silence as the elaborate fraud unfolded before them. Security personnel had positioned themselves near exits, responding to a subtle signal from Thomas. Vanessa's eyes darted between the mounting evidence and the blocked exits. Her strategy visibly shifted from denial to a new tactic. "Fine," she snapped, abandoning the pretense. "I'm not your sister, but I'm not the only one who's been dishonest here." She turned to the executive team. Evelyn knew about the financial irregularities. She approved them for tax advantages. Ask her about the Westlake Properties transaction or the Singapore shipping arrangement. The desperate attempt to implicate Evelyn created a new tension in the room. I had anticipated this move, but its impact on Evelyn was painful to witness. "Is there any truth to this allegation?" Eleanor asked carefully. Evelyn's professional mask crumbled entirely as she faced the dual betrayal: Vanessa's complete deception and the public exposure of her own ethical compromises. "I authorized certain financial strategies," Evelyn admitted after a long pause, her voice barely audible. "Minor tax optimizations that pushed regulatory boundaries. Nothing approaching the scale of what's being described here." The executive team exchanged concerned glances as the implications became clear. Their CEO had enabled smaller ethical compromises that created vulnerability to larger exploitation. "The documentation supports that distinction," I confirmed, maintaining focus on facts rather than accusation. "Mrs. Stone appears to have authorized minor financial irregularities for tax purposes. Ms. Stone then leveraged this knowledge to execute much larger fraudulent transactions, correctly assuming the initial compromises would prevent close scrutiny." The clinical language couldn't fully mask the human tragedy unfolding. Evelyn's horror as she realized how her own ethical flexibility had been weaponized against her, the company, and me. "I never authorized information sharing with competitors," Evelyn stated firmly, professional training reasserting itself, "nor any large-scale financial transfers." "The evidence supports that position," I acknowledged. "The corporate espionage and major fund transfers appear to be solely Ms. Barnstone's actions, executed without your knowledge." Vanessa's expression hardened as her attempt to create an accomplice failed. "You were happy enough with the tax advantages when they funded your precious art collection," she spat at Evelyn. "Don't pretend you're above it all now." I maintained professional focus despite the painful revelations. The distinction between minor regulatory violations and systematic fraud is significant, both legally and ethically. Our purpose today is to establish the facts, not render judgment. The court recorder continued documenting every statement as the executive team processed these revelations. Their concern had shifted from the awkwardness of the situation to the serious corporate governance issues raised. Security alerts suddenly chimed across multiple devices: unauthorized financial transfers in progress from Stone Elite's primary accounts. She's moving money right now, Michael reported, checking his security monitoring tablet. Marcus made a discreet call, activating financial authority protocols to freeze the transactions in progress. Vanessa lunged for her bag, but security personnel moved quickly to intercept her. All Stone Elite accounts have been temporarily secured pending investigation, Marcus announced, maintaining his unofficial capacity while ensuring proper procedures were followed. The financial authorities have been notified of potential fraudulent activity. Vanessa's calculated composure had completely dissolved, replaced by the raw panic of someone seeing years of careful planning collapse in minutes. "You can't do this," she hissed, struggling against security's professional restraint. "I have rights. This is illegal detention." "No one is detaining you," I clarified calmly. "However, the evidence of financial crimes has been properly reported to authorities who may wish to speak with you." Evelyn had retreated to her executive chair, physically distancing herself from Vanessa while processing the cascading revelations. Her carefully constructed world, both personal and professional, was disintegrating before her eyes. "I want to see the complete evidence file," she requested quietly. Professional training providing structure amid emotional chaos. Of course, Eleanor provided a comprehensive copy, properly documented for legal proceedings. All authentication certificates and chain of custody documentation are included. The executive team had shifted into crisis management mode, their loyalty to the company overriding personal connections as they assessed the damage and necessary responses. "We'll need to notify the board immediately," the CFO stated, already drafting communications, "and prepare a strategy for client assurance." Vanessa made one final desperate attempt, addressing Evelyn directly. "Everything I did was for us. Williston was going to undercut you completely. I was protecting our interests." "Our interests?" Evelyn's voice cut like steel. "You're not my sister. You're not family. You're a fraud who exploited my greatest vulnerability for your own gain." The elevator chimed, announcing the arrival of federal agents responding to the financial crime alerts. Their presence transformed the corporate drama into a matter of legal consequences. As Vanessa was escorted out for questioning, her final glare in my direction contained no remorse, only rage at having her scheme dismantled by the very person she had worked so methodically to destroy. In the momentary quiet following her departure, Evelyn and I shared a single look across the conference room. Acknowledgement of the truth revealed, but no restoration of what had been lost between us. 3 days later, I watched the news report from my Tacoma apartment, coffee cooling beside me as the dramatic footage played across the screen. Financial fraud suspect Vanessa Stone, also known as Carolina Vega, was apprehended at Seattle-Tacoma International Airport this morning while attempting to board a flight to the Cayman Islands, the reporter announced over footage of federal agents escorting a handcuffed Vanessa through the terminal. Stone is wanted in connection with multiple allegations of identity fraud, financial crimes, and corporate espionage. Sources close to the investigation suggest the case may involve international dimensions, with potential connections to money laundering operations across multiple jurisdictions. The camera captured Vanessa's face, the practiced charm replaced by cold fury as she was led to a waiting vehicle. The woman, who had so methodically dismantled my life, was facing consequences proportional to her actions. I felt no satisfaction, only a quiet recognition that truth had prevailed. The system designed to protect people from such predators was functioning as intended. My phone rang, Eleanor with an update on the financial recovery efforts. "The freezes were implemented in time," she reported. Approximately 80% of the transferred funds have been secured pending investigation. Stone Elite's board has authorized full cooperation with authorities. And Evelyn? I couldn't help asking. Facing difficult questions about corporate governance, but likely to avoid criminal charges given her limited involvement and full cooperation. The company will survive, though with significant reputation damage. I thanked her for the update, ending the call as the news shifted to analysis of the business impact. Stone Elite Properties stock had fallen sharply, client relationships were under review, and the luxury real estate market was adjusting to this unexpected disruption. The justice I had sought wasn't about punishment, but truth, establishing what had actually happened, clearing my name, and ensuring appropriate consequences for deliberate harm. That goal had been achieved not through vengeance, but through methodical evidence and proper legal channels. 3 months later, I would build something new from the ashes of this experience. But first, there was one final chapter to close in the story of my marriage to Evelyn Stone. The conference room at Wellington Associates bore little resemblance to Stone Elite's executive suite. Modest furnishings, practical design, and an atmosphere of subdued professionalism created an appropriate setting for the final dissolution of a 15-year marriage. Evelyn entered precisely on time, the past 3 months evident in her appearance. Still elegant, still composed, but carrying the visible weight of public scandal and professional crisis. Her company had survived, but diminished. The mansion sold at auction, the client list reduced, her reputation permanently altered. "James," she acknowledged me with a slight nod, taking her seat across the table. Our respective attorneys exchanged pleasantries while we maintained professional distance. The divorce settlement had been negotiated without acrimony. I had requested only what was demonstrably mine before the marriage, plus fair compensation for career opportunities declined. No punitive demands, no public accusations beyond those necessary to establish the truth. "Before we proceed," Evelyn said unexpectedly, dismissing her attorney with a gesture, "I'd like a moment to speak privately." Our attorneys exchanged glances before withdrawing, leaving us alone for the first time since the revelation day at Stone Elite. "I've had 3 months to process everything," she began, maintaining eye contact with evident effort, "to understand how completely I was manipulated, and how willingly I participated in my own deception." I remained silent, allowing her the space to continue. "I wanted to believe I had family again," she admitted, vulnerability showing through her professional exterior, "so much that I ignored obvious inconsistencies, dismissed your legitimate concerns, and participated in destroying an innocent person's life and reputation." "We're both responsible for our choices," I responded carefully. "I could have been more assertive when I first noticed problems. I chose comfortable silence too often." She nodded slightly, acknowledging the shared responsibility without diminishing her own. "The forensic accountants found everything. Vanessa, or whatever her real name is, had been systematically draining company accounts almost from the beginning. Over $4 million diverted through elaborately disguised transfers. And the Williston connection? Extensive," she confirmed. "She was providing him competitive information for over a year. The regulatory investigation suggests she was playing us against each other, planning to leverage information from both companies for her exit strategy." A silence fell between us, not comfortable, but not hostile either. Two people acknowledging the complete dismantling of a shared life based on manipulation neither had fully recognized until too late. "I've arranged a restitution fund," Evelyn said finally, "for the employees affected by the company's downsizing. It seemed appropriate, given my role in creating the vulnerability Vanessa exploited." I nodded, recognizing the gesture as characteristic of Evelyn's better nature. The woman I had married, not the manipulated executive who had expelled me from our home. "There's one more thing," she continued, hesitation evident. "After all this is finalized, would you consider—" She paused, seemingly struggling with the words. "I've lost everything that mattered. My company is half its former size, my reputation damaged, my sense of judgment questioned. You're the only person who knew me before all this." The unspoken question hung between us, an invitation to reconciliation, to rebuild from the ashes of mutual devastation. "I can't," I said gently. "Too much has happened. We can't go backward." Her expression revealed both expected disappointment and surprising relief. "I understand. I think I needed to hear that from you. Permission to truly end this chapter." We called the attorneys back, completing the settlement with professional efficiency. As Evelyn rose to leave, she extended her hand, a business gesture rather than a personal one. "I wish you well, James, truly." "The same to you, Evelyn." The handshake closed 15 years with dignified finality. What had begun with love had ended with respect, a better outcome than most relationships destroyed by such comprehensive betrayal. Phoenix Consulting Group specializes in supply chain vulnerability assessment, I explained to the potential client across my modest but well-appointed Tacoma office. We identify where information flows, financial systems, or organizational structures create exploitation opportunities. 3 months after the divorce finalization, I had leveraged my logistics expertise, recent experience, and network of professional connections to establish a specialized consulting firm. Our client list included several former Stone Elite clients who had sought more ethical management of their interests after the scandal. "Your approach is uniquely comprehensive," the client observed, reviewing our proposal. "Most security consultants focus exclusively on technological vulnerabilities. You address the human element as well. Systems are only as secure as the people operating them," I explained. "The most sophisticated security can be circumvented through trust exploitation and relationship manipulation." My team had grown to include both technical experts and human behavior specialists. Eleanor had joined as our financial security lead, bringing forensic expertise that proved invaluable in vulnerability assessment. Michael headed our digital security division, while Judge Reynolds provided occasional advisory services on legal vulnerability reduction. "I notice several former Stone Elite employees on your staff," the client commented carefully. "Talented professionals who shared our commitment to ethical business practices," I confirmed. "They chose principle over position during a difficult transition." The Phoenix Consulting offices occupied a renovated historic building with views of Commencement Bay, more modest than Stone Elite's glass tower, but with a solid foundation that seemed appropriately symbolic. We had deliberately established a different kind of corporate culture: transparent operations, collaborative decision-making, and explicit ethical guidelines. After the client departed, I reviewed our current projects with Eleanor, who had become both colleague and friend through our shared experience. "The Jenkins assessment revealed 3 critical vulnerabilities," she reported. "We've provided recommendations for immediate remediation." "Excellent. Any update on the Westbrook implementation?" "Proceeding on schedule. Their team has been remarkably receptive to the governance changes." Our business model had proven successful beyond initial projections. Companies increasingly recognized that financial and information security required more than technical solutions. They needed comprehensive vulnerability assessment that included human factors, relationship dynamics, and ethical boundaries. "There's something else," Eleanor added, hesitation evident. Vanessa Stone's trial date has been set. The prosecutor's office requested our potential availability as expert witnesses. I nodded, having anticipated this development. We'll provide whatever factual testimony is required. No more, no less. The woman now facing trial for multiple federal charges was no longer central to my life, a chapter closed rather than an ongoing preoccupation. The justice system would determine appropriate consequences without my emotional investment in the outcome. "One more thing," Eleanor said, sliding a file across the desk. "The background check on Michael's recommendation for the new analyst position. Thought you might want to review it personally." The candidate was Jennifer Hayes, my former administrative assistant who had provided crucial early evidence during the investigation. Her career at Stone Elite had stalled after the scandal, despite her ethical choices. "Schedule an interview," I decided immediately. People who choose truth over convenience are exactly who we need. October 2024. The conference room at Phoenix Consulting hummed with activity as our expanding team prepared for the Northwestern Business Ethics Summit, where I would deliver the keynote address. 1 year had passed since the stormy night of my expulsion from a life I had thought secure. "The advance registration exceeded capacity," Michael reported, reviewing the event logistics. "They've moved to a larger venue." The invitation to speak about maintaining integrity through crisis had come as a surprise, recognition from the business community that had once shunned me based on manufactured evidence. My journey from accused to authority on ethical business practices represented a restoration I had never specifically sought, but welcomed nonetheless. As the team discussed presentation details, my attention was caught by a news alert on the wall-mounted screen. Vanessa Stone, sentenced to 10 years in federal prison for fraud, identity theft, and corporate espionage. The team fell silent, aware of the significance, the final legal consequence for the woman who had orchestrated so much damage. "Justice served," Eleanor commented quietly. "Proportional consequences," I corrected gently. "Not revenge, just appropriate accountability." The distinction mattered to me. Throughout the investigation and aftermath, I had maintained focus on truth rather than retribution, a principle now central to Phoenix Consulting's approach to vulnerability assessment and ethical business practices. The news continued with a smaller update. Stone Elite Properties had completed restructuring under new leadership, Evelyn Stone having stepped down as CEO while retaining board membership. The company continued at reduced scale, but with stronger governance controls and ethical guidelines. Life had moved forward for all involved, consequences proportional to actions, new beginnings emerging from painful endings. Later that evening, reviewing my keynote notes in the quiet office, I contemplated the journey from devastation to rebuilding. The loss had been real: a marriage, a home, a position, a reputation temporarily destroyed. But what had emerged proved more authentic and ultimately more valuable. A business built on genuine, ethical principles, relationships based on demonstrated character rather than convenience, and a hard-won wisdom about human nature. The award that had once hung on my apartment wall for finding truth in patterns others miss now occupied a modest place in my office, a reminder that professional skills can serve personal integrity when properly applied. The invitation to the Ethics Summit lay beside it, a different kind of recognition, not for corporate success, but for maintaining dignity through crisis and emerging with principles intact. Tomorrow, I would share that journey with others, not as a victim seeking sympathy, but as a professional offering valuable insight born of experience. The Phoenix metaphor embodied in our company name had proven apt. new life emerging from what had appeared to be complete destruction. Some might view my current position as diminished compared to my former association with Stone Elite's wealth and prestige. But as I prepared to address business leaders about maintaining integrity through crisis, I recognized the profound truth. Dignity isn't measured by external trappings, but by internal adherence to principles that matter. The storm had revealed, not created, the true character of everyone involved. And in that revelation, I had found not just recovery, but transformation. The rain falls differently now. Where once it reminded me of humiliation on a mansion driveway, today it symbolizes cleansing and renewal, nature's perpetual cycle of ending and beginning. When family betrayal strikes, we discover the true foundation of our dignity, not in others' validation or material success, but in the unwavering commitment to truth and principle that no external force can take unless we surrender it ourselves. The most painful lesson from my journey wasn't learning that people can deceive. We all know this intellectually. Rather, it was recognizing how our own unacknowledged desires create vulnerability to manipulation. Evelyn's longing for family connection and my desire to maintain comfortable status both contributed to our exploitation. Understanding our psychological blind spots proves as crucial as securing our financial assets or information systems. Many of you reading this have experienced betrayal's bitter sting, the shocking discovery that someone you trusted completely has methodically undermined your life's foundation. That moment of recognition feels like absolute destruction, as if nothing will ever be whole again. But I've learned that crisis doesn't create character. It reveals it. The storm strips away pretense, leaving only what's authentic. And sometimes what remains proves stronger and more valuable than what was lost. True dignity isn't something others can take. It's something only we can surrender. By maintaining principle through crisis, responding to deception with truth rather than vengeance, we discover strengths we never knew we possessed. Our worth isn't determined by others' treatment, but by our own response to betrayal. What boundaries have you needed to establish to protect your self-worth? What difficult truths have you faced that ultimately led to greater authenticity? The phoenix rises not despite the fire, but because of it. So might we all.